Chag Sameach, everyone. We're going to join in the words of sweet as honey.
Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongues. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu, לעשות בדברי תורה, לעשות בדברי תורה. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongues. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongues. Israel, Israel, ve'oraita haru. Israel, Israel, ve'oraita haru. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah.
And Chag Sameach to everyone who is joining us here at Temple Bethel, and Chag Sameach to everyone who is joining us online to celebrate this Shemini Atzeret, this additional day of celebration, this 8th day of the festival of Sukkot, in which we celebrate Simchat Torah, the celebration of the gift of the cycle of Torah readings. Tonight we will conclude our annual journey from the first words of the book of Genesis all the way through to the last words of the book of Deuteronomy. And then, as we have for thousands of years, renew our commitment to Torah and tradition and to learning the stories and narratives that have animated our people's conscience and given us wisdom for thousands and thousands of years as we embark again with the first words of the book of Genesis. Torah is a word in Hebrew which means instruction. But Torah means so much, and we hear that word Torah and we think of probably the most important of everything that matters to us as Jews. And you notice that during the period of the festivals, beginning with Rosh Hashanah, which already seems like a long time ago, right? That we change a lot of things about our attire and our appearance for this set of festivals that begin the 7th month, the month of Tishri. We will notice a little bit later that the mantles on our Torah scrolls have been turned to white. We wear white garments to celebrate the renewal and the sense of purification that we're trying to fashion during these first days of the new year. But garments, as important as they are not really the full depth of what lies beneath. Garments simply are coverings. We spent a lot of time thinking about garments. I don't know, but I spent, not that long, but a little longer than usual thinking about what tie I wanted to peek out from underneath my robe. A lot of times we spend a good bit of time in our closets thinking about what we want to wear on a given day, how we want to look when we go to school or to work or to whatever it is that we're attending. And yet those garments are not us, right? It's just the covering we put on top of us. And then if you go a little deeper, right, well, we have our skin and our muscles and our bodies. And those are important parts of us too, but it's not really all of us, because those things too are just coverings for what lies beneath: our ideas, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, the powerful light that lives within us that gives us the capacity to learn and to love and to grow and to feel and to really be the people that God intends us to be. So similarly, Torah also has lots of garments. First, it has the garment, the cover of the Torah scroll itself, but then there's also the words, the language, the Hebrew letters that form words and that help us to create these concepts. But Torah isn't just the hundreds of thousands of little Hebrew letters, that blank ink on that white parchment. Torah is all of those ideas, all of that light, all of those insights and pearls of wisdom that teach us how to fashion a life of purpose and holiness that is the core of Torah. And so as we celebrate this evening and celebrate the gift of Torah, we give thanks for all of the different layers, not simply of Torah and all of the things we learn from Torah, but we give thanks for all the different layers of ourselves and how Torah invites us and teaches us how to peel back those different layers so that when we get to the core of who we are, we discover that it is God who is not only outside of us like a big shining light, but that God is inside of us also like an even brighter light. And so to kindle the lights, to begin this Simchat Torah, we invite our congregation's president, Wendy Whalen. We invite everyone, please, to turn to the screen that you are watching for a special reading that we have as we introduce the lighting of the candles. Wendy, there's a reading there. Wendy, there's Wendy, read what's on the podium right there. No, put the book down. There you go.
Eyes to the joys in life, beauty that delights the eye, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our moral being, the heritage of celebration that unites us as a people. Now Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom tov.
Amen. Thank you, Wendy. She was brought in at the last minute. It's not her fault. We didn't give her clear enough instructions. We are so blessed to have Wendy as our congregation's president and as our leader. And now we continue with the Kaddish for the festival.
Sorry.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'am, v'romemanu mikol ha'shon, v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav. V'titein lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava, moadim l'simcha, chagim uzmanim l'sason. Et yom chag hashmini chag Atzeret hazeh, zman simchatenu mikra kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim, kivanu b'charta v'tanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, umodei kodecha b'simcha uv'sason hinchatanu, Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Amen.
L'chaim. A few years ago, when we commissioned our newest Torah, I learned something I never learned before, that there is an understanding in Judaism that the whole world was created for the sake of Torah. That's why we are here, to learn Torah. And yet, if we are only here for that and separate and independent, it is no good. And so it is the prayer that we do next that brings us together in order to revel in the Torah. It is the Baruch Hu sung once at the temple in Jerusalem to unite the people who had journeyed there for pilgrimage, and today a reminder that it is time to pray. We rise and continue on page 394 with the Baruch Hu. Please rise.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? La 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 la, la 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 la, la la la.
Hafoch ba v'hafoch ba v'chol haba. Turn Torah and keep turning it, for everything can be found in it. Keep your eyes attached to it. Spend your lifetime in its study. Never budge from it, for there is no better way of life than this.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
Page 398.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Amcha Avta. Torah u'mitzvot, u'mikutim u'mishpatim, otam
page 402, via Hafta. Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please join me as we read together with the reading on the screen. May our eyes sparkle with the light of Torah, and our ears hear the music of its words. May the space between each letter of the scrolls bring warmth and comfort to our soul. May the syllables draw holiness from our hearts, and may this holiness be gentle and soothing to us and all God's creatures. We continue with Micha Mocha on page 406.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Shomeinu leShaim Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShaim Vehamidenu Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Shomeinu Ushmor
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים, והעמידנו שומרנו
The rabbis teach that the black letters that we see inscribed on the Torah scroll are not the only words of Torah that exist, but the white parchment around also represent another set of Torah, the conversation of the Jewish people for thousands of generations that seek to understand what those words written in black mean. That white Torah has been added to it year after year, generation after generation, through the Midrashim and the Mishnah and the Talmud and the writings of our ancestors, and even in the conversations that happen in our own homes and in our own synagogues to this day. We add to it each time we stand for the tefillah and have another moment, another opportunity to share the deepest thoughts and feelings of our own hearts and souls with the Holy One. And so we rise now and turn to page 468 for the festival evening tefillah to add our own words of Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai b'chayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, hu Ukadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha sela. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. There was a teaching about Sukkot and Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. The teaching is that the 7 days of Sukkot is when all of the inhabitants of the land of Israel came to Jerusalem to fulfill the obligations of the pilgrimage, whether they were a member of the children of Israel or not. But the Torah ordained this extra day, this 8th day, that the Jewish people should literally wait, hang around, don't leave so soon. It was a day after the 7 days of the festival that the other residents of the land may have gone back to their homes, but the Jewish people were asked for one final opportunity to have a connection with the Holy One. And so we treat this day as if it is part of Sukkot. In a moment, we will enter the Sukkah for one final time this evening to wave lulav and etrog and to have just a little bit of an extra opportunity to celebrate the goodness, the joyousness of the festival of Sukkot before we turn our minds to celebrating the words of Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'shev b'sukkah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al netilat lulav.
Now in words of silent prayer and meditation.
A never-ending circle, going round and round. The sun comes up and the moon goes down, and the world goes around and around and around. We are a part of the circle, a part of the circle, going round and round. We are a part of the circle, a part of the circle, going round and round. The world is a circle, a never-ending circle, a never-ending circle, going round and round. Goes down, and the world goes round and around and around. We are a part of the circle, a part of the circle, going round and round.
Continue now with Aleinu on page 586. We ask everyone to please rise.
Aleinu לשבח
Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר
Please be seated.
אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
A few announcements. First, we want to invite everyone tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. to join us for our Simchat Torah morning service with Yisker. That service begins at 10:30. You can attend either in person here at Temple Bethel, or you can attend online through virtual Bethel. This coming Friday, we will begin Shabbat Bereshit, the first Shabbat of the cycle of Torah readings, and this will be a special Shabbat of healing and renewal as we draw on those themes of renewal and rebirth from the story of Genesis. So we hope that you will join us on Friday night. More information about wonderful programs that you can enjoy, especially our program, part of our Nuremberg series, which will be this Sunday, can be found on the Temple's website, www.tbeboca.org. We have extraordinary programs for you to enjoy, both from the safety of your home or also here in the synagogue, as we begin to make our way back to celebrating events in person. On page 594, why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God in each hour of the 24 and each moment then. In the faces of men and women, I see God, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. As we think about those who help to inscribe on the tablets of our hearts the wisdom that animates us and guides us and that helped us to author the story of our own lives, we turn to page 598 and we rise together to offer thanks to God for the gift of life with the words of Kaddish. Together we say, Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, B'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal Shemei dekutsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens grant peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn. And we say, amen. Please be seated. The story of the Jewish people is the story of a journey. It's the story of a journey that in some ways is from the very beginning of the moments of creation to this very moment, and God willing into the future to a time of healing and wholeness, renewal and redemption. It is the story of a journey that began with a man named Abraham in the city of Ur of the Chaldees, who made his way to the land of Canaan. And then when the descendants of Abraham and Sarah made their way to Egypt, there was yet another journey, our national journey of liberation from slavery in Egypt through the wilderness to arrive on the steppes of Moab, looking out over the plain towards the promised land. Each and every year, we have the privilege of retracing the steps of that journey. Each and every year, we read the same stories, and they become so familiar, and yet we are never the same people who read them. We are always a little bit older, God willing, a little bit wiser, hopefully a little bit more filled with experience and understanding, so that those words resonate to us differently and similarly each time we are blessed to encounter them. And so as we make our way this evening through the Torah from its ending back to its beginning, we make our way there by retracing our steps. I want everyone who's here with us tonight and those of you who are celebrating with us at home to imagine you are pressed shoulder to shoulder tightly with hundreds and hundreds of people in our sanctuary, as we typically would in the celebration of Torah and this holiday. And imagine holding that parchment in your hands as we do each year, with the Torah scroll unwound all the way around our sanctuary. And imagine that, of course, as we do each year, you look down and you say, well, what part did I get? Right? I wonder what I'm looking at here. And so for the next few moments, we're going to take the opportunity to look at 10 separate episodes of Torah and to remember this incredible journey that we're so privileged to afford ourselves each and every year. The Torah begins with the word Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so it was through this process of creation that God began to organize the big welter and waste, the big mixed up and messed up world that God had given us, that resulted on that seventh day, the gift of Shabbat and the day of rest, so that we, created in God's image, might learn to be partners with God in continuing the work of creation. Over time, we lost sense of that fact that we have to continue to work in partnership with God. There were times when we actually thought ourselves to be gods. And so the Holy One took a look at creation and said, I think I may have made a mistake, but there was one man, Noah, Ish tzaddik tamim haya b'dorotav. He was a pure, righteous man in his generation. Et ha'Elohim hitalech Noah. Noah walked with God. And so the Holy One decided to restore God's own faith in humanity through Noah and his family by ordering him to build quite a large boat. And one of the things that I love about the story of Noah is that we're reminded that of all the things the Holy One taught us in terms of how long the ark needed to be, 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 50 feet high, 45 feet high, that God told us to build a first deck and a second deck and a door on the side and a skylight for the roof. But the one thing the Holy One told us, don't build a rudder. If you have enough faith in me and in our relationship, then I, the Holy One, will steer it for you. And then as time went on and humanity spread out across the land, God realized that one could not rely on spontaneous righteousness in order for humanity to become what it needed. God would need a partner. God would need a leader. And so God chose Abraham and Sarah, who had made their way from Ur near the Persian Gulf, where the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers come together, led them to the north until Abraham was 75 years old, when he left the city Haran, named for his late brother, to venture forth, Lech Lecha, to get himself going to a land that God would point out to him. And in exchange, Noah would realize blessing. He himself would become a blessing a portal through which the world would come to know the creator of the universe, come to know righteousness and morality, would come to know understanding and justice, compassion and wisdom, love and peace, if only we would choose to continue not simply lech lecha, to go to ourselves, but to journey toward that promised land, real and mystical, to help us to become all that we need to be.
We wish that we could stay dwelling in that place of God, but Genesis is bookended by fighting brothers. And in the next portion, we'll look at Vayeshev. We have the fighting brothers that exist at the end of Genesis. Of course, Cain and Abel were at the beginning, and Joseph and his brothers were at the end. And there was always a catalyst. With Cain, it was God's preference to Abel's offering that made Cain murder his brother. And with Joseph, it was this beautiful coat that Jacob gave to his son Joseph, his favorite of all the others, that caused such tension and ultimately moved the story from the land of Israel that God promised us to the land of Egypt and such difficulty. It is in Egypt that our next portion we look at deals with the 10 plagues. Why 10? Why not 37 or 100 or 5? It is a mystery why there were 10. But the most favorite midrash I have is about the 10 plagues. This first of the 10 that you saw on the screen is when the river Nile is turned to blood. And it is said that Moses could not carry out that plague because the Nile River is the river that saved his life when he was just a little boy sent in a little basket down the river. And so instead, with the help of God, it is Aaron that carried out that 10th plague. And finally, the inspiration for the way these beautiful slides look this evening that Kira and Isabella have worked so hard on, the Song of the Sea. Look at the Torah. Let's keep it on the screen for a moment. This Song of the Sea, the guttural response to the Red Sea parting that the children of Israel sang, is said to be laid out in Torah with the very path that the children of Israel took through the Red Sea, not a straight across path as often depicted, but this wandering back and forth through the parted Red Sea is what it is said that this part of Torah is supposed to mimic. And so as we share the graphic of the children of Israel walking across that parted sea, we are reminded of the majesty and the beauty of that moment.
Having achieved our freedom, we then arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai. And God called upon the Israelites to hear the words of the 10 Commandments. And God reminded them that God was the one who had just brought them out of Egypt, and that now that their relationship had been established, God reminded us that God is the only God who we were to worship solely and follow in God's instructions. In Parshat Yitro, we receive those instructions and begin our journey as part of the people of Israel, people consumed with and committed to the brit of our people. And we went on through the generation that wandered to the desert. We got to the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. And just as a way to notice that in the Torah scroll itself, there is a large gap between the end of one book and the beginning of the next. The book of Vayikra begins with the word Vayikra, as God called out to Moses and continued the giving of instruction on how we would do our worship, first in the tabernacle and then in the temple, the way that we would show how we would follow God's instructions by coming at the appointed times and occasions like this occasion of Sukkot and Shemini, Atzeret, Simchat Torah, to fulfill our obligation to the mitzvot that we see exemplified in the tablets on the screen. Our journey went on, we know, for 40 years. It went on, and then towards the end, Moses realized that his time was coming to an end. And much of the book of Deuteronomy, we are looking at the 6th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy here, is Moses imploring the Israelite people to take to heart and to express with love our relationship with God. Shema Yisrael, the words call out, "Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one." In this 6th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, you should love Adonai your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your capabilities. And to make these words that I command you this day, put them in your heart and teach them to your children. These words of the Shema have become the watchword of our faith and words we recite over and over again, day after day.
And then as we wind our way to the end of the book of Deuteronomy, we come to the portion from last week, Parshat Ha'azinu. You'll notice the columns of this special poem, Moses' last words to the Israelites, a reminder of the journey that they took before, the stories that their ancestors would have to tell them, to remind them also that if they forget all of the blessings that the Holy One had given to them, then they would fall into dismay and into curse. But then if they would return back to God, then God will welcome them with love and appreciation. And so at the end of Moses' 120 years and his close relationship with God, we arrive at these last words of the book of Deuteronomy, which we will read and enjoy with you this evening. As we take the Sifrei Torah, the Torah scrolls from the Ark, we invite everyone to please rise.
Ki mitzion, tetzei Torah,
Udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Ki mitzion, tetzei Torah, Udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael. B'kedushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Adonai Hagidula Hagidula Ve'atiferet Ve'anetzach Ve'ahod Ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz Ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz Lecha Adonai Hamlacha Ve'minaseh Lechol Lerosh.
For the honor of the Aliyah, for these last words of Torah, we invite everyone who is with us this evening to stand in your seats to offer the words of the blessing. And those of you who are joining us at home as well, you can offer your words from the comfort of the safety of your home as we say the blessing together. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'im v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai. I got it. Moshe ben Meah ve'esrim shana b'moto, and Moses was 120 years when he died. Lokato eino v'lo nes lecho. His vim and his vigor went unabated. His eyes were still bright. V'ivku b'nei Yisrael et Moshe ba'arvot Moav. And the children of Israel cried for Moses in their grief on the steeps of Moab. Shloshim Yom Motu Yemei Bechi Aval Moshe. 30 days they wailed, and when the time for the crying for Moses, the grief, the mourning for Moses came to an end. Yeshua ben Nun Malay Ruach Chochma, and Joshua the son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom. Ki samach Moshe et yadav elav, because Moses had placed his hands upon him. Vishmu'u alav b'nei Yisrael v'yasu kasher tziva Adonai et Moshe. And the children of Israel listened to him and did all that God had instructed to Moses. V'lo kam navi od b'Yisrael ka Moshe, and never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moses, asher yadu Adonai panim el panim, who knew God face to face. L'chol ha'otot v'amovtim asher shalchu Adonai la'asot be'eretz Mitzrayim. All of the wonders and all of the miracles that God had done in the land of Egypt, l'paro, to Pharaoh, u'l'chol avodav, and to all of his servants, u'l'chol artzo, and to all of Pharaoh's land, u'l'chol hayad ha'chazakah, and the outstretched hand, l'chol hamorah hagadol asher asa Moshe le'nei kol Yisrael, all of the wonderful great things that was done by Moses in the eyes of all of Israel.
Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek.
We say the blessings together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
B'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael, avi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yai 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 Chazikim b'vitom ela me'usha. Shalom, 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 shalom.
Please be seated. Temple Bethel, for many, many years, has celebrated a very special tradition of what we call our Simchat Torah baby. The Simchat Torah baby is the baby generally born closest to Simchat Torah in our congregation that is at least old enough and home enough to be able to celebrate with us on Simchat Torah. So it's interesting, we had a slew of babies in July, and then we kind of had a lull in August, and then in the last few weeks there's been a torrent of babies. How many babies have we had in the last week? We had one born on Saturday, and with 3 or 4 in the last 2 weeks, but we have a few that are joining us from the last several months who are our Simchat Torah babies. So the first that we have is Sunny Elise Schwartz, who is the daughter of Robin and Adam Schwartz. And next we have Leo Alexander Demutis, who is the son of Ali and John Demutis. And lastly, we have who he doesn't know this, which is to his benefit, Mr. Landon Prince Cooper, who will be celebrating his bris tomorrow, who is the son of Michelle and Brett Cooper. We're so excited to have all of you. Look, can we just take a minute? Look at those babies. Oh my gosh, they're so delicious. Some of them have a lot of hair, which is good. Hopefully they can hold on to it for as long as possible. I'm losing mine, so I'm just grateful that they have some. But it's very exciting. Robin and Adam are new members to our congregation, and we're excited to have you as part of our temple family. Allie and John are sort of new to our congregation. Allie has been a member of Temple Bethel since she was a little girl, and it was a privilege to celebrate Allie and John's wedding years ago, and this is their second child, and we're excited to have Leo join the family. And Michelle has been a member of Temple Bethel since she also was a very little girl. It was my blessing to celebrate Michelle and Brett's wedding a number of years ago, and now we have the privilege of celebrating with Landon. And so we hope that Sonny and Leo and Landon, even though some of them live in different cities, will eventually grow to be wonderful friends and maybe one day classmates, but mostly we hope that they will grow in the embrace of their families and the Jewish people. And so we invite their parents to, unless they want to, I don't know, I mean, these are obviously clearly extremely bright, gifted young people, so I don't know if they've learned the Torah blessings yet. Landon, you get a break. You haven't even had, two Shabbatot yet. But we invite your parents to please lead us in the blessings for the lead to the reading of Torah. 1, 2, 3. Baruch Adonai Amvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mitzvot v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Adding to Temple Bethel's tradition, now we will have the Simchat Torah dog.
As Rabbi Greg remarked, the Torah portion Noah is in 2 weeks, so we can have the dogs back then. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. V'haaretz hayita tohu v'vohu v'choshech al panei tehom. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. V'choshech al panei tehom. And there was this tohu and vohu, this interesting mess that was of the world, and the Spirit of God hovered al panei tehom. Baruch Elohim merchevet al panei hamayim, and the Spirit of God hovered on the face of the waters. Vayomer Elohim yehiyeh or, and God said, "Let there be light." Vior, and there was light. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov, and God saw that the light was good. Yavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hachoshech, and God separated between the light and the darkness. Yikra Elohim lo'or yom v'lehoshech kara laila v'yerev v'yevoker yom echad. And God called the light day and the darkness night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. Vayomer Elohim yi rakia batoch hamayim yi mavdil bein mayim lamayim. Ya'as Elohim et harakia yavdel bein mayim asher mitachat l'rakia uvein hamayim asher me'al l'rakia. And God said, let there be a space between the two bodies of water. And God separated water from water. And God made a segment of the water above, and God made a segment of the water below and separated. Asher ma'al l'rakia v'yikain. Yikra Elohim l'rakia shamayim. And God called the firmament above the heavens, the sky, v'yerev v'yevoker yom sheni. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. And babies, we're going to bring you back so you can do that blessing with your parents. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mishaberach Avotenu Racham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, send blessings to you, Sonny and Leo and Landon, and your families on this wonderful occasion. We pray that the three of you and your families will regularly hear the sound of Torah coming from stories that your parents will tell you, books they will read to you, lessons that you will learn from your parents and your grandparents, and God willing, from your many teachers and rabbis that you will encounter along the way. Know that the three of you are loved not simply by your families, but by your people and by the Holy One in whose image you were created. And we pray that all of us together may go from strength to strength. And we say, Amen. So in a moment, we're going to be lifting the Torah, and then we will invite those who are online with us and also those in the sanctuary with us to participate in a hakafah. So for those of you who are here with us in the sanctuary, we invite you to come to your right down the aisle. You can grab a little baby Torah that you can dance with, or we can give you one of the Torah scrolls from the Ark that you can dance with a little bit as you parade around the sanctuary. For those of you who are online, you can grab your baby Torahs that you have at home or any flags that you might be waving, or just give us a good hello as you become part of our virtual Hakafah, our virtual parade of the Torahs. We celebrate the gift of Torah and tradition of life and light, and we invite everyone to please rise. For those of you who are with us, come down front and help us to begin our celebration tonight.
Simchat Torah, Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael.
Shavtem mayim b'sason, minei mayim Yeshua, mayim, 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 hey mayim b'sason, mayim, 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 hey mayim b'sason, hey, 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 mayim, 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 mayim b'sason, mayim, 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 mayim b'sason,
Shavtem mayim b'sason, minei Yeshua. Shavtem mayim b'sason, minei Yeshua.
mayim, 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 hey mayim b'sason, mayim, 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 hey mayim b'sason, hey, 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 mayim, 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 mayim b'sason, mayim, 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 mayim b'sason.
Tzena, 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 tzena,
Abnei Torena Chayalim Hamoshava Al na, al na, al na, al na, al na titchabena mibecha Yelishava Tzena, tzena, Abnei Torena Chayalim Hamoshava Al na, al na titchabena Yelishava, Tzena, 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 Tzena,
Hava, Nagila, Hava,
Nagila, Hava, Nagila, Venismecha.
Hava,
Nagila, Hava, Nagila, Hava, Nagila, Venismecha.
Hava, Neranana, Hava, Neranana, Hava, Neranana,
Venismecha. Hava,
Chag Sameach, everyone. Enjoy your holiday. We look forward to seeing you back tomorrow for morning festival services. Enjoy.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.